Every night, a pack of dogs gathers outside the town hospital, braving the bitter cold and enveloping darkness. When Nurse Lara finally takes notice and begins to investigate, the shocking truth that unfolds moves her to tears. What secret lies behind the unwavering loyalty of these dogs, and what hidden sorrow do they carry? Stay tuned to find out. In the heart of a quiet town, where the hospital stands as a beacon of hope amidst challenging times, an unusual nightly ritual has captured the community's attention. As dusk settles and the last rays of sunlight fade, a pack of stray dogs emerges from the shadows. They silently assemble outside the hospital's imposing entrance, their eyes reflecting both resilience and a haunting melancholy. It is as if these animals, despite the harsh chill of the night, are drawn together by an inexplicable bond, a silent call that reverberates deep within their souls. Nurse Lara, known for her compassion and unwavering commitment to her patients, had long noticed subtle hints of this phenomenon. Initially, it began with whispers among the staff, murmurs of strange sightings during her late shifts. However, as nights passed, the numbers grew and the presence of the dogs became impossible to ignore. Every evening, just as the hospital corridors emptied and the building grew quiet, the dogs would appear, forming a somber congregation at the threshold. Their somber eyes and silent vigil sparked a curiosity in Lara that she could no longer contain. One fateful evening, driven by a mix of professional duty and personal empathy, Lara decided to uncover the mystery behind this nightly occurrence. Clad in her scrubs and armed with nothing more than a flashlight and her innate sense of care, she stepped out into the cold night. The hospital's entrance, usually a symbol of solace and recovery, now served as a gathering point for these forlorn creatures. As she approached, the gentle sound of paws on wet pavement and the soft whimpering in the distance stirred something deep within her, a premonition that the story behind these animals was far more complex than it appeared. What Lara was about to discover would challenge everything she thought she knew about loyalty, loss, and the unspoken language of compassion that connects us all. In that moment, beneath the flickering glow of the streetlights, the silent assembly of dogs seemed to hold a secret that promised to reveal a tale of tragedy, hope, and the profound bond between man and animal. In the quiet town where our story unfolds, the hospital stands as a venerable institution, a place where life's most fragile moments are tended with care and compassion. By day, its corridors bustle with the steady rhythm of routine checkups, emergency interventions, and hopeful recoveries. But as night falls, an eerie stillness descends upon the building, punctuated only by the distant hum of city lights and the soft rustling of leaves in the cool autumn air. Nurse Lara, a dedicated caregiver with a gentle spirit and an inquisitive mind, had long been a part of this hospital's heartbeat. Known among her colleagues for her empathy and tireless work ethic, Lara found solace in the quiet moments of the night shift, when the frenetic energy of the day gave way to introspection. It was during one of these late hours that she first noticed the phenomenon that would soon capture her heart and alter her perception of the world around her. At first, it was a mere whisper in the dark, a fleeting glimpse of movement outside the hospital's entrance. A lone dog shivering against the biting wind had caught her attention. Over subsequent nights, that solitary figure was joined by others, until a small pack of stray dogs began to form an almost ritualistic assembly at the hospital doors. Their eyes, wide and soulful, seemed to speak of untold stories and silent sufferings. It wasn't long before the growing number of canines could no longer be dismissed as a mere coincidence. Lara's initial curiosity soon transformed into a deep concern. The dogs did not appear to be aggressive or threatening. Instead, they carried an air of solemnity, as if burdened by a grief that resonated with the quiet desolation of the night. Determined to understand the cause of their unusual behavior, Lara decided to observe them more closely. She spent countless nights on duty, her flashlight casting long, wavering beams on the pavement as she noted the positions in which the dogs would gather, the times at which they appeared, and the subtle variations in their demeanor. Her investigations revealed a curious pattern. The dogs would arrive just as the hospital's emergency lights flickered off, their presence synchronized with a moment of collective silence that enveloped the building. There was a subtle coordination in their behavior, a mix of anticipation and resignation, that hinted at a deeper connection between these animals and the hospital itself. Lara began to wonder if the dogs were somehow drawn by an unseen force, or perhaps by the lingering echoes of pain and hope that permeated the halls of the institution. Amidst this mystery, Lara also learned more about the dogs themselves. She spoke with the hospital janitors and security staff, piecing together anecdotes about stray animals roaming the town, often left to fend for themselves on cold nights. One caretaker mentioned that many of these dogs had been spotted near the hospital for months, sometimes seen lingering by the entrance long after most had gone home. Others recalled moments when the dogs seemed to comfort patients or even linger near the beds of those in palliative care, as if offering a silent vigil to those fighting their own battles. In parallel, Lara's personal life began to intersect with the enigma unfolding outside her workplace. A childhood memory of a beloved pet, one that had once offered her solace during turbulent times, resurfaced with renewed clarity. That memory, filled with tender moments of connection and unspoken understanding, fueled her determination to unravel the truth behind the nightly gatherings. Could it be that these dogs were not merely wandering souls, but messengers of some kind, carrying the weight of forgotten stories and unmet needs? As days turned into weeks, Lara meticulously documented her observations, jotting down notes during her breaks and capturing discreet photos with her phone whenever possible. Her growing collection of evidence painted a picture of an inexplicable phenomenon that blurred the lines between the natural and the supernatural. The more she learned, the more questions arose. Were the dogs attracted by a particular scent, a residue of past tragedies, or perhaps by the lingering presence of a compassionate spirit that once graced the hospital? And why did their eyes seem to mirror a profound sadness, as if they had witnessed countless sorrows and were waiting for redemption? Meanwhile, the hospital itself began to feel the impact of this nightly ritual. Some staff members expressed concern over potential disturbances, while others saw in the dogs a symbol of resilience amid adversity. For Lara, every passing night brought with it a deeper conviction that this mystery was not merely about stray animals. It was a call to uncover a hidden narrative of loss, love, and the human capacity for empathy. Thus, under the pall of the starlit sky and the silent watch of an unseen fate, Nurse Lara found herself on the brink of a discovery that would forever change her understanding of loyalty and sorrow. The quiet assembly of dogs outside the hospital, bathed in the glow of flickering streetlights, held within it a secret waiting to be revealed, a secret that promised to connect the threads of the past with the hopes of the future. As the nights wore on, Nurse Lara's investigation began to reveal layers of complexity that went beyond the simple presence of stray dogs. Determined to uncover the deeper meaning behind their nightly vigil, she found herself drawn into a network of hidden connections, both personal and communal. One chilly evening, after her shift ended, Lara decided to follow the dogs at a distance. Clad in her warmest jacket, she slipped out of the hospital with her camera and notebook in hand. The dogs, as if aware of her silent pursuit, moved with a purposeful grace that made it seem as though they were leading her somewhere. They trotted along narrow alleyways, past shuttered shops, and finally arrived at an old abandoned building. This desolate structure, long forgotten by the town, had an eerie yet magnetic quality about it. Its broken windows and overgrown vines told stories of a past era, one that seemed laden with memories of both joy and sorrow. Inside the building, Lara discovered remnants of old photographs and letters strewn about in a dusty room. These artifacts hinted at a forgotten chapter in the town's history, a tale of a once thriving orphanage that had closed down decades ago. The orphanage, it appeared, was renowned for its compassionate staff and a special bond they had with the local stray dogs. These dogs, she learned from a faded newspaper clipping, were not mere bystanders. They had served as loyal companions to the children, offering solace during times of abandonment and hardship. The orphanage had been a sanctuary, a place where love transcended the harsh realities of life. Lara felt a surge of emotion as she pieced together the story. The dogs gathered outside the hospital each night might be connected to the lingering spirit of that orphanage, an echo of a time when they were cherished by the children who once called that place home. Could it be that these animals were driven by a collective memory of care and compassion? Were they, in their own way, trying to bridge the gap between a painful past and the healing present at the hospital? Back at the hospital, whispers about the abandoned orphanage began to circulate among the staff. Some recalled vague memories of an old building where children had once laughed and played, while others had heard stories of how the stray dogs had been considered part of the family. Lara, now armed with this new insight, approached the hospital archivist, Mr. Benson, who had been with the institution for many years. With a patient and gentle tone, she recounted her findings and showed him the photographs and letters she had collected. Mr. Benson's eyes widened as he recognized some of the images. He revealed that the orphanage, once known as the Haven of Hope, had closed under tragic circumstances, its closure marked by a series of misfortunes that were never fully explained. As Lara delved deeper into the records, a recurring name emerged: Eleanor, a nurse from the orphanage who had been renowned for her kindness and dedication. According to the archives, Eleanor had formed an unbreakable bond with the dogs, often seen comforting the children with her gentle presence and the loyal animals at her side. Some even believed that her spirit lingered in the town, embodied by the faithful dogs who now gathered outside the hospital, as if seeking to continue her legacy of care. Simultaneously, Lara noticed a change in the behavior of the dogs. They appeared less restless and more organized, as though they were waiting for something or someone to acknowledge their silent message. Their eyes, which once reflected only sorrow, now shimmered with a hint of hope and anticipation. It was as if they were inviting the town to remember, to reconnect with the values of compassion and community that had been lost over time. However, not everyone was receptive to this unfolding mystery. Some members of the hospital staff expressed concerns that the dog's nightly presence might be a bad omen, a sign of lingering misfortune. Debates arose during staff meetings, pitting pragmatism against sentiment. While a few argued for stricter measures to keep the dogs away, Lara's conviction only grew stronger. She believed that these animals were more than a nuisance. They were a living testament to the enduring power of empathy and memory. In private moments, Lara wrestled with her own past. Memories of a childhood spent with a beloved pet, a dog that had once been her source of comfort during dark times, mingled with the bittersweet recollections of loss and abandonment. These personal reflections fueled her determination to honor the legacy of Eleanor and the orphanage. She began to compile a detailed account of the orphanage's history, the story of Eleanor, and the pivotal role that the stray dogs had played in that narrative. Lara's journey transformed from a mere investigation into a heartfelt mission. She envisioned a future where the hospital, in partnership with the local community, could create a memorial for the Haven of Hope, a place dedicated not only to the children of the past, but also to the enduring spirit of care embodied by the dogs and those who loved them. This revelation marked a turning point, a confluence of past and present, sorrow and hope, urging everyone to embrace the healing power of compassion. As Nurse Lara continued her investigation, the quiet rhythm of the nightly ritual began to shift in unexpected ways. One crisp, starless evening, while reviewing her detailed notes and archived photos in the hospital's dimly lit break room, Lara received an anonymous envelope slipped under the door. The envelope, worn at the edges and sealed with an old-fashioned wax stamp, contained a single handwritten letter. Its contents sent a shiver down her spine, a revelation that would forever alter her understanding of the mysterious nightly gatherings. The letter recounted the story of a young girl named Clara, who had once resided at the Haven of Hope orphanage. According to the note, Clara had formed an extraordinary bond with a stray dog during her brief stay. The dog, described with an almost mythical reverence, was said to have been the protector and constant companion of a nurse who went by the name Eleanor. The letter claimed that on the night of a great tragedy at the orphanage, when an unspeakable accident claimed the lives of many children, the faithful dog had been left behind, its heart broken and its spirit forever tied to the memory of that nurse. Lara's heart raced as she read the letter. Could it be that the dogs she had observed each night were not random wanderers, but living echoes of a past marked by both deep sorrow and abiding love? The note further hinted at something even more startling, that one of the stray dogs might actually be the same loyal companion who had once comforted Clara. The anonymous writer claimed to have seen a distinct dog among the pack, a dog with a unique, almost regal bearing, and eyes that held an otherworldly wisdom. This dog, the letter suggested, might be the reincarnation or enduring spirit of the protector that once belonged to Eleanor. Determined to verify the claim, Lara retraced her steps to the abandoned building where she had discovered remnants of the orphanage. In the dusty silence of the derelict structure, she found a faded mural on one of the crumbling walls, a mural that depicted a smiling nurse surrounded by children and a noble dog at her side. The image was unmistakable. It bore the unmistakable signature of the orphanage's past, and the dog in the painting seemed to gaze directly at Lara, as if urging her to remember its true legacy. The twist came swiftly. While cross-referencing the letter with the hospital archives, Lara uncovered a series of long-forgotten records about Eleanor. These records described not only her compassion and dedication, but also a deep spiritual connection with the stray dogs that frequented the orphanage. According to the documents, Eleanor had believed that the dogs carried within them the souls of those who had suffered loss, and that through their presence, healing could be achieved. One detail in particular stood out. Eleanor's final wish, as recorded by a close friend, was for the hospital, where she had later worked, to honor the memory of the Haven of Hope by caring for these animals. The wish had been quietly buried over the years, forgotten by most but not by fate. It was as if the hospital, the orphanage, and the stray dogs were all intertwined in an intricate tapestry of memory and redemption. At that moment, the pack of dogs that had long gathered outside the hospital took on a new significance. They were not merely a nuisance or an oddity, they were emissaries of a past steeped in both tragedy and hope. And within that pack, Lara began to recognize a familiar face, the very dog described in the letter. This dog, with its dignified stance and soulful eyes, seemed to lead the group with an air of quiet authority. Lara's pulse quickened as she realized that this was the same guardian spirit that had once comforted Clara, a living reminder of Eleanor's legacy. The revelation left Lara with a profound sense of responsibility. She now understood that the nightly ritual was not simply an eerie occurrence, but a call to honor the past and to revive the compassionate ideals embodied by Eleanor and the Haven of Hope. The anonymous letter had provided not only a startling twist, but also a powerful mandate to ensure that the legacy of care, loyalty, and healing would continue through the actions of the hospital and the community. With this newfound knowledge, Lara resolved to share her discoveries with the hospital administration and the local community. She envisioned transforming the hospital grounds into a living memorial, a place where the memory of the orphanage, Eleanor, and the loyal stray dogs could be celebrated and preserved. This revelation also brought Lara closer to her own personal history. Echoes of her childhood, marked by the comfort of a beloved pet, resonated with the idea that love and loyalty could transcend even the boundaries of life and death. As the night deepened and the pack of dogs dispersed into the darkness, Lara felt both the weight of sorrow and the spark of hope. The twist in the tale had not only uncovered hidden truths about the past, but had also paved the way for a future where compassion and remembrance could heal old wounds. It was a turning point, a moment when the ghosts of yesterday reached out to guide the hearts of today. In the days following the shocking revelation, the atmosphere at the hospital shifted dramatically. News of Lara's discovery began to ripple through the staff and the local community, drawing both skepticism and heartfelt support. Nurse Lara, once seen as a diligent but unassuming caretaker, had now emerged as the reluctant guardian of a powerful legacy. Her determination to honor the memory of the Haven of Hope and the spirit of Nurse Eleanor resonated deeply with many, though not everyone was immediately receptive. At first, several senior hospital administrators expressed concern over the implications of Lara's findings. They feared that associating the hospital with a tale of tragedy and paranormal sentiment might tarnish its reputation and invite unwanted scrutiny. In several meetings, the directors debated whether such matters should be relegated to mere folklore rather than embraced as a core part of the hospital's identity. However, as Lara presented meticulously gathered evidence, photographs of the faded mural, copies of the anonymous letter, and historical records corroborating Eleanor's final wishes, a quiet transformation began to take place. Dr. Michael, a respected physician known for his rational outlook, initially regarded the story with reserved skepticism. Yet, as he listened to Lara recount the events of that fateful night and saw the earnest emotion in her eyes, he began to understand the deeper connection between compassion and healing that lay at the heart of her narrative. "There is more to patient care than just medicine," he later confided to a colleague. "Sometimes, healing begins with remembering the humanity behind every gesture of care." Among the hospital staff, reactions were equally varied. Some nurses and support personnel expressed their admiration for Lara's courage in delving into a mystery that intertwined personal loss with community history. For many, the nightly assembly of stray dogs was no longer an inexplicable anomaly, but rather a poignant symbol of resilience and empathy, a living reminder that even in the bleakest of moments, hope endures. Conversations in the break room shifted from pragmatic concerns about safety to spirited discussions about preserving the legacy of the orphanage and Nurse Eleanor. Their voices, once subdued, now carried a shared sense of purpose. Outside the hospital, the community's response was both heartwarming and transformative. Local residents, many of whom had grown up hearing whispers of the haven of hope, started to contribute their own memories of the old orphanage and the loyal dogs that had once roamed its halls. Community meetings were held in the town hall, where long-forgotten stories surfaced. An elderly man recounted how a stray dog had once comforted him during a personal tragedy, while a middle-aged woman described how the presence of these animals seemed to fill a void left by lost family members. The narrative began to evolve, merging personal recollections with Lara's investigation to form a tapestry of shared history and hope. Amid these unfolding events, Nurse Lara found herself adjusting both professionally and personally. The hospital administration, now more open to the idea of embracing the orphanage's legacy, sanctioned a small memorial corner on the hospital grounds. Together with a few willing colleagues, Lara began curating a display of photographs, handwritten notes, and artifacts that narrated the story of the Haven of Hope and the selfless Nurse Eleanor. Each item was placed with deliberate care, symbolizing the enduring connection between the past and the present and the healing power of remembrance. Even within Lara's personal circle, the revelation stirred a deep emotional awakening. Her close friend Marta, who had always admired Lara's empathy, admitted that she too had sensed an inexplicable pull towards the stray dogs whenever she passed the hospital after dark. The realization that these animals were possibly the custodians of a sacred memory now imbued their nightly gatherings with profound meaning. Marta's newfound perspective led her to volunteer at a local animal shelter, inspired by the idea that every creature carried a story worth preserving. Not all adjustments, however, were met without challenges. A few staff members remained wary of stirring up old ghosts, concerned that revisiting painful histories might disrupt the clinical detachment necessary in a hospital setting. Yet, as the memorial grew and more community members participated in events commemorating the orphanage, the collective sentiment began to shift. Gradually, the initial tension gave way to an atmosphere of unity and shared healing. The hospital, once a cold institution defined solely by its clinical functions, was now evolving into a space where human emotion, memory, and care coexisted harmoniously. Lara, amidst this transformation, became a symbol of hope. Her tireless efforts in piecing together the past and advocating for the dog's significance not only inspired her colleagues, but also touched the hearts of many in the community. Every night, as she passed by the memorial corner, she would pause to watch the stray dogs gather once more outside the hospital. Their solemn eyes now shimmered with a quiet understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the promise that compassion, when nurtured, can mend even the deepest wounds. As the adjustments took root, the hospital administration began planning community outreach programs that focused on mental health, memory, and the importance of preserving local history. They saw in this unique narrative an opportunity to foster a deeper connection with the public, turning an eerie mystery into a beacon of collective resilience. As the hospital began to embrace the legacy of the Haven of Hope, Nurse Lara's investigation took an unexpected turn. Amid the growing community outreach and memorial projects, whispers of a lingering mystery emerged. one that would challenge not only the newfound unity, but also the very fabric of the town's shared history. One day, while reviewing some old files in the hospital archives, Lara stumbled upon an obscure journal. The pages, yellowed with age, detailed the life of a former caretaker of the orphanage. The caretaker, named Samuel, had chronicled peculiar incidents that occurred in the days leading up to the orphanage's tragic closure. Among his entries were mentions of mysterious nighttime gatherings, not only of stray dogs, but also of an enigmatic figure dressed in old-fashioned clothes, who was seen comforting the children and the animals alike. Samuel's writings hinted that this figure might have been connected to a secret benefactor who had once promised to restore the orphanage. Intrigued by these accounts, Lara realized that there might be another layer to the story, a subplot involving hidden financial support and even darker secrets behind the orphanage's downfall. Simultaneously, tensions began to rise among certain hospital staff. A faction led by Dr. Collins, a stern and pragmatic administrator, started questioning the wisdom of aligning the hospital's image with what he considered old superstitions. He argued that focusing on past tragedies might distract from the hospital's primary mission of medical excellence. Dr. Collins's skepticism fueled a series of heated debates at staff meetings, creating a rift between those who saw the memorial as a tribute to compassion and those who worried it might hinder the institution's progress. This internal conflict added a layer of challenge for Lara, who now found herself defending not only the legacy of Nurse Eleanor, but also the deeper, more symbolic meaning behind the stray dog's nightly vigil. At the same time, an unexpected subplot unfolded in the local community. Her well-known journalist, Emily Rivera, caught wind of the hospital's evolving narrative and began to investigate the story for a feature article. Emily's investigative work led her to interview former residents of the Haven of Hope, local historians, and even some of the hospital's older staff members who had first-hand memories of the orphanage. As she dug deeper, Emily uncovered hints of corruption and neglect that might have contributed to the orphanage's closure. According to several anonymous sources, funds that were meant to support the orphanage's rehabilitation had mysteriously vanished, leaving the institution vulnerable and ultimately leading to its downfall. This revelation cast a shadow over the uplifting memorial project and raised uncomfortable questions about accountability and the misuse of public trust. Meanwhile, the stray dogs themselves began to exhibit signs of behavior that suggested they were not just passive witnesses of history, but active participants in a living narrative. One of the dogs, the dignified guardian with soulful eyes, was observed leading a small group away from the hospital on several occasions, only to return later with what appeared to be items of sentimental value: a tattered scarf, a worn-out toy, and even a faded photograph. These mysterious objects hinted that the dogs might be gathering remnants of the past, as if they were piecing together forgotten memories to complete a story that had long been abandoned. Lara, increasingly convinced that these acts held significance, started documenting each item meticulously, wondering if they could offer clues about the hidden benefactor Samuel had mentioned in his journal. The mounting challenges forced Lara to navigate a labyrinth of conflicting agendas. On one side, the hospital administration, divided by the emerging debate between preserving a compassionate legacy and maintaining a strictly clinical image, found itself at a crossroads. On the other, the local community was polarized by Emily Rivera's exposé, which threatened to expose long-buried scandals while also igniting hope for a renewed sense of accountability. Lara's personal quest to honor Nurse Eleanor's memory now collided with these broader issues, placing her in a precarious position where every decision carried far-reaching implications. In a pivotal moment, during a community forum held at the town hall, Lara took the stage to share her findings and her heartfelt vision for a memorial that would bridge the gap between past and present. Her passionate speech resonated with many, but it also intensified the debates among those who were wary of stirring up old wounds. The forum became a microcosm of the larger struggle, a delicate balance between preserving history with all its pain and using it as a foundation for future healing. As the days turned into weeks, Lara realized that solving the mystery of the stray dogs and the orphanage's legacy would require not only a deep understanding of the past, but also a collaborative effort to confront current challenges. The journal, the stolen funds, and the cryptic behavior of the dogs all interwove into a complex tapestry that called for further investigation. Yet, amid the turmoil and the conflicts, there remained a palpable sense of hope, a belief that by uniting the community and acknowledging both the triumphs and the tragedies of history, they could pave the way for a brighter, more compassionate future. As the investigation deepened and the hospital community became more entangled in the legacy of the Haven of Hope, interpersonal relationships and moral conflicts began to surface with greater intensity. Nurse Lara, now at the epicenter of a multifaceted narrative, found herself confronting not only external challenges, but also a series of internal dilemmas that tested her emotional resilience and her commitment to truth. One evening, during a particularly stormy night that mirrored the turmoil inside, Lara was approached by Dr. Collins in the quiet corridor near the memorial corner. His expression was a mix of frustration and concern. "Lara," he began in a hushed tone, "I understand the sentimental value of all this, but shouldn't we focus on the practical aspects of running a hospital? Our patients come here for medical care, not ghost stories." His words, though measured, cut deep into Lara's determination. She found herself torn between her duty as a nurse and her passion for preserving the memory of Nurse Eleanor and the orphanage, a passion that had grown into a mission to heal the emotional scars of the past. In response, Lara explained with heartfelt intensity, "Dr. Collins, the essence of healing is not confined to medicine alone. The presence of these stray dogs, the echoes of the Haven of Hope, they remind us that care extends beyond physical treatment. They are here to help us remember that compassion can mend the invisible wounds of the soul." Despite her eloquent plea, Dr. Collins remained skeptical, his pragmatic mind grappling with emotions that he preferred to set aside. This exchange underscored a profound conflict between scientific rationality and the human need for emotional connection, a dilemma that was echoed in the hearts of many within the hospital. At the same time, the community's response continued to evolve in unexpected ways. During a local support group meeting organized to discuss the orphanage's history, several residents recounted their personal experiences with loss and abandonment. An elderly woman tearfully recalled how a stray dog had once comforted her after the death of her child, while a middle-aged man spoke of the profound impact that community care had on his own recovery from personal tragedy. These shared moments of vulnerability fostered an environment where empathy flourished, yet they also revealed the pain of unresolved memories. The collective emotional dialogue not only validated Lara's quest, but also exposed the fractures within the community, fractures that threatened to widen as hidden secrets of the past began to surface. Meanwhile, Emily Rivera, the determined journalist who had been investigating the orphanage's dark past, encountered her own ethical quandary. In a discreet conversation with a former orphanage staff member, Emily learned that the financial mismanagement and disappearance of funds had not been accidental, but rather the result of deliberate corruption by a trusted benefactor. Torn between her professional duty to report the truth and her growing empathy for the individuals affected by the scandal, Emily struggled with the decision of whether to expose the full extent of the betrayal. The potential fallout from her exposé could irreversibly damage the fragile bond that had begun to form between the hospital, the community, and the memory of the Haven of Hope. Back at the hospital, the stray dogs continued their nightly vigil, their presence evoking a mix of awe and sorrow in those who observed them. One evening, as Lara made her routine rounds, she noticed a particular dog, majestic and calm, seemingly hovering near the memorial display. Its eyes, filled with an inexplicable depth, appeared to reflect not just the pain of a bygone era, but also a longing for reconciliation. This silent moment between Lara and the dog became a powerful symbol of the complex interplay between memory and healing. It was as if the animal, embodying the spirit of Nurse Eleanor, was urging everyone to confront their past, no matter how painful, in order to build a more compassionate future. The emotional dilemmas did not stop at the hospital's doors. At home, Lara grappled with her own memories of loss and resilience. Late one night, as she sat by the window watching the dogs gather in the distance, she recalled the comforting presence of her childhood pet, a faithful companion who had once helped her navigate the darkness of her early years. This recollection stirred an internal conflict, the fear of reopening old wounds versus the need to embrace the healing potential of revisiting those very experiences. Lara found herself questioning whether the painful memories were best left buried, or if they could serve as a catalyst for growth and collective healing. In a heartfelt discussion with her close friend Marta, who had recently become involved with a local animal shelter, Lara admitted, "Sometimes it feels like we're caught between the need to forget and the need to remember. But I believe that our past, no matter how painful, holds the key to our future." The dogs, they're not just a reminder of sorrow, they're a call to embrace the full spectrum of our emotions. Marta's empathetic response reinforced Lara's resolve, even as it highlighted the very real risk of emotional overload that both she and the community faced. Amid these layers of complexity, the hospital administration began to see the value of integrating emotional care into their practices. A committee was formed to explore initiatives that would honor the orphanage's legacy while providing psychological support for both patients and staff. These meetings, filled with passionate debates and tentative compromises, underscored the realization that healing is as much an emotional process as it is a medical one. As the days passed and the various conflicts and challenges intertwined, Nurse Lara remained steadfast in her belief that the past, with all its raw pain and lingering hope, must be confronted if true healing was to occur. The complex interactions between rationality and sentiment, between truth and memory, continued to shape the unfolding story, each layer adding depth to the mystery that the stray dogs represented. As the hospital's journey of remembrance and healing progressed, a palpable tension began to build, both within the institution and in the broader community. The mystery surrounding the stray dogs, the orphanage's legacy, and the uncovered secrets was far from resolved. Instead, new layers of intrigue emerged, hinting that the past might be more intertwined with the present than anyone had imagined. One cold evening, as a dense fog rolled in over the town, Nurse Lara received a cryptic phone call late at night. The caller, masked by a distorted voice, warned her that not everything in the story was as benign as it appeared. "There are forces at work that would prefer the past remain buried," the voice cautioned, before abruptly disconnecting. This ominous message sent a chill down Lara's spine. Was it merely a prank, or was someone or something determined to keep the dark secrets of the haven of hope from coming to light? In the days that followed, subtle yet unnerving signs began to manifest. At the hospital, unexplained disturbances were reported. Folders containing archival documents were found mysteriously rearranged, and the once secure memorial corner experienced inexplicable power outages. Staff members whispered about strange shadows moving at the periphery of their vision, and even the loyal stray dogs seemed to exhibit more anxious behavior. The regal guardian of the pack, whose soulful eyes had once conveyed silent wisdom, now appeared restless and wary, as if sensing an impending storm of revelations. Meanwhile, Emily Rivera's investigative work took an unexpected turn. Her exposé on the orphanage's financial scandal had already stirred controversy, but a lead from an anonymous tip pushed her further into the labyrinth of corruption. She uncovered evidence of clandestine meetings between local officials and a mysterious benefactor who had profited from the orphanage's collapse. The documents suggested that this benefactor, whose identity remained concealed, had not only diverted funds but also maintained a covert influence over various institutions in town, including the hospital. This revelation hinted at a deliberate cover-up, raising questions about whether the hospital's integration of the orphanage's legacy was being manipulated for ulterior motives. At a tense town hall meeting convened to address the mounting concerns, emotions ran high. Community members demanded answers about the missing funds and the true intentions behind the memorial project. Heated debates erupted between those who saw the initiative as a genuine tribute to lost lives and those who suspected that it was a facade masking deeper corruption. Amid the cacophony, an elderly man, his voice trembling with both anger and sorrow, recalled a long-forgotten warning from his youth, a warning about a shadow benefactor who had once tried to silence the voices of the vulnerable. His words added a chilling resonance to the growing sense of unease. Back at the hospital, Tensions escalated further during an unscheduled midnight inspection of the archival room. Lara, accompanied by a small team of trusted colleagues, discovered that some of the archival records detailing the orphanage's history had been tampered with. Pages were missing, and certain photographs had been replaced with altered images. It became clear that someone had deliberately attempted to rewrite history, erasing the painful yet vital truths of the Haven of Hope. The discovery not only deepened Lara's determination to expose the truth, but also underscored the dangerous stakes involved in unearthing the past. In a parallel development, the stray dogs, which had always been a silent chorus to this unfolding drama, began to behave in an even more coordinated manner. On several occasions, they were seen converging in precise formations, almost as if orchestrated by an unseen conductor. Their actions suggested that they might be trying to signal something, a message, perhaps, that would provide clues to the dark forces at play. Lara started noticing that the regal guardian dog, in particular, would sometimes position itself in front of the hospital's entrance as if standing guard against an impending threat. The escalating tension reached a climax one stormy night, when a sudden power outage plunged the hospital into darkness. In the ensuing chaos, Lara received another anonymous message, this time delivered via a handwritten note slipped under her door. The note, composed in hurried scrawl, warned that if Lara continued her pursuit of the truth, she would not only endanger herself, but also risk reopening wounds that some in the community were desperate to keep sealed. The warning was stark and unambiguous, a clear signal that forces beyond mere human scheming were at work. Confronted with these ominous hints and new elements of intrigue, Lara felt a surge of conflicting emotions. The stakes had escalated far beyond a simple investigation into stray dogs or an abandoned orphanage. It had evolved into a battle for the very soul of her community. The truth, with all its painful complexities and hidden agendas, was now at the heart of a struggle that pitted old ghosts against modern power. As she stood alone in the quiet of her office, the soft pitter-patter of rain on the window pane accompanied her thoughts, a reminder that nature, in its relentless persistence, often holds the key to secrets that humans try so desperately to bury. In that moment, Lara resolved to press on, determined to confront both the human and the inexplicable forces that sought to silence the legacy of the Haven of Hope. With every new piece of evidence, every warning received, she grew more certain that the stray dogs were not merely victims of circumstance, but messengers heralding a truth that could heal or shatter the community. The challenge was immense, and the road ahead fraught with peril, yet the glimmer of hope that had first sparked her investigation now burned brighter than ever. As the investigation unfolded, new subplots began to interlace with the primary narrative, weaving together the lives of the hospital staff, the community, and even those seemingly peripheral to the mystery. Nurse Lara's relentless pursuit of the truth now intersected with personal stories that enriched the tapestry of the past and present, revealing unexpected alliances and hidden connections. One of the first new threads emerged from a chance encounter between Lara and Mr. Benson, the hospital archivist. While reviewing old files together, Mr. Benson recalled a long-forgotten photograph featuring a young nurse, Eleanor herself, standing proudly beside a group of children and a majestic dog. The archival image, lost among decades of paperwork, had been neglected until Lara's renewed interest in the orphanage's legacy brought it to light. Mr. Benson confided that he had always felt there was more to Eleanor's story than met the eye, and he shared a personal account of a promise he'd made years ago to protect her memory. This rekindled connection between past and present fueled Lara's determination, as she realized that preserving history was not only an institutional duty, but also a personal calling for those who had been touched by it. Simultaneously, the local journalist Emily Rivera continued her investigation into the mysterious benefactor behind the orphanage's downfall. In a series of discreet meetings with former orphanage staff and community elders, Emily uncovered intriguing hints of a secret network that extended far beyond the confines of town. One elderly gentleman recounted a time when the orphanage had flourished under the patronage of an enigmatic philanthropist whose identity had been shrouded in mystery. His recollections painted a picture of a man who was both benevolent and ruthless, a figure whose influence might still be felt in the current power dynamics surrounding the hospital and the local government. As Emily delved deeper, she found herself entangled in a web of conflicting narratives, each testimony a piece of a puzzle that promised to reveal how corruption and compassion had danced together to shape the orphanage's fate. At the same time, the stray dogs began to act as silent mediators between the disparate threads of the story. Observant hospital security personnel noted that the pack, led by the regal guardian, would sometimes venture close to the hospital's restricted areas. One night, as the group approached the memorial corner, a small, seemingly insignificant object caught their attention, a locket with a faded photograph inside. The discovery of the locket, later identified as belonging to one of the orphanage's former caretakers, stirred up a fresh wave of curiosity. This tangible connection to the past resonated deeply with both the hospital staff and community members, reinforcing the idea that the dogs were not merely wandering souls, but carriers of a sacred legacy that spanned generations. The mounting subplots gradually converged during a community event organized by the hospital, a memorial service dedicated to the Haven of Hope. Held in the hospital's courtyard under the soft glow of twilight, the event brought together former staff, local residents, and even some skeptical officials. Lara, now a respected figure among those who believed in the orphanage's redemptive power, delivered a heartfelt speech that recounted the intertwined fates of Eleanor, the orphanage, and the stray dogs. Her words, laden with both sorrow and hope, captivated the audience and opened the door to shared recollections. People spoke of lost family members, of moments when a stray dog had offered unexpected comfort, and of the enduring legacy of care that had once defined the orphanage. During the event, several pivotal interactions took place. Dr. Michael, who had initially been cautious in his support, publicly acknowledged the significance of integrating emotional healing with medical care. His supportive stance signaled a gradual shift within the hospital's leadership, suggesting that even the most skeptical minds could be moved by the power of empathy. In another corner of the gathering, Emily Rivera conducted an impromptu interview with an elderly woman whose eyes welled up as she recounted a childhood memory of playing with a friendly stray near the orphanage. Her story, simple yet profoundly touching, underscored the deep emotional bonds that connected the community to its past. Yet not all connections were entirely harmonious. Tensions persisted between factions who viewed the memorial project as an opportunity for healing, and those who suspected ulterior motives behind the reawakening of the orphanage's legacy. Dr. Collins, still vocal in his concerns, clashed with several board members who saw the project as a necessary step toward restoring community trust and moral integrity. These heated debates, though fraught with conflict, served to further illuminate the complexities of reconciling modern progress with historical memory. Amid these unfolding events, Lara found herself caught between her professional responsibilities and the pull of the past. Late at night, as she sat alone in her modest office, she reviewed her notes and the various artifacts collected over the weeks. Each object, a faded photograph, a handwritten letter, a mysterious locket, served as a silent testimony to lives once lived and love once shared. It was in these quiet moments of reflection that Lara recognized the true depth of her mission: to not only uncover a hidden narrative, but to restore a sense of continuity and hope to a community in need. In this intricate web of subplots and evolving relationships, the connections among the characters began to form a cohesive, if complex, picture of redemption and resilience. The orphanage's legacy, the enigmatic benefactor's shadow, and the stray dog's unwavering presence converged to create a narrative that was both a tribute to the past and a beacon for the future. As each subplot revealed its own layer of truth, the hospital, the community, and Lara herself moved closer to a resolution that promised to heal old wounds and honor a timeless legacy. In the weeks following the emotional community event, tensions that had been simmering finally erupted into a maelstrom of conflict and uncertainty. The hospital, now a battleground of conflicting ideals, was caught between the desire to honor a cherished legacy and the fear of unearthing painful truths. As the anniversary of the orphanage's closure approached, the stakes grew higher, and the hidden forces behind the legacy began to press in from all sides. Dr. Collins, emboldened by mounting pressure from those who distrusted the memorial project, launched a formal inquiry into the hospital's decision to incorporate the orphanage's legacy into its identity. In a series of heated board meetings, he argued that the project was a distraction from the hospital's core mission. "We must remain focused on saving lives, not indulging in nostalgia," he insisted, his voice resonating with a stern finality. His campaign garnered support from a faction of administrators who were wary of reopening old wounds, creating a palpable rift within the institution. Simultaneously, Emily Rivera's investigative reports began to expose the darker side of the orphanage's history. Her latest article hinted at a conspiracy involving misappropriated funds and a shadowy benefactor whose identity had long been concealed. The exposé sent shockwaves through the community, igniting debates in local media and stirring public anger. Families who had once found solace in the idea of a compassionate past now questioned whether the orphanage's closure had been the result of deliberate exploitation. The revelations not only threatened the integrity of the memorial project, but also cast a long shadow over the entire narrative Lara had worked so hard to piece together. Amid the external pressures, the stray dogs, the silent keepers of the orphanage's legacy, began to display increasingly erratic behavior. The regal guardian dog, once a symbol of unwavering dignity, started leading the pack in unpredictable directions. On several nights, the dogs gathered in unusual formations, their actions seeming to convey urgent messages that no one could quite decipher. Security footage captured one particularly chilling scene. The pack, moving as if in a coordinated dance, halted abruptly near a restricted section of the hospital's grounds. The sight stirred rumors of hidden secrets and fueled speculation that the dogs were trying to warn the community of imminent danger. Inside the hospital, Nurse Lara felt the pressure mounting as she struggled to balance her professional responsibilities with the weight of the truth she was uncovering. Late one night, while reviewing her meticulously kept notes in a quiet corner of the administrative building, she received an urgent message from Mr. Benson. The archivist had discovered a sealed envelope buried among old records, a final, unrecorded testament from a long-departed staff member of the Haven of Hope. The envelope contained startling evidence, personal diaries, financial documents, and photographs that revealed not only the tragic fate of the orphanage, but also suggested that its collapse had been manipulated by powerful interests. The contents of the envelope challenged everything Lara had believed. The diary entries detailed covert meetings, threats, and the desperate pleas of those who tried to protect the orphanage's vulnerable residents. The financial records showed suspicious transactions that hinted at systematic embezzlement, while the photographs depicted secret gatherings in hidden corners of the orphanage, moments that no one had ever spoken of publicly. With trembling hands, Lara realized that the very foundation of the legacy she was fighting to preserve was marred by deceit and betrayal. The revelation of these documents set off a chain reaction within the hospital and the community. Protests erupted outside the hospital as local citizens demanded accountability and transparency. The administration, already divided by internal strife, now faced the dual challenge of addressing both the financial scandal and the emotional legacy of the orphanage. In a dramatic emergency meeting, the hospital's board convened to decide whether to suspend the memorial project until further investigations could be conducted. Emotions ran high, with voices raised in passionate debate, as the board grappled with a stark choice: continue the project as a symbol of hope or abandon it in the face of overwhelming evidence of past corruption. In the midst of this turmoil, Lara found herself at a crossroads. Torn between her loyalty to Nurse Eleanor's memory and the undeniable evidence of wrongdoing, she began to question her own convictions. Was it possible to honor the compassionate legacy of the orphanage while acknowledging the dark forces that had tainted its history? The emotional burden of this dilemma weighed heavily on her, as she grappled with the realization that truth and hope were rarely found on a single, unblemished path. As night fell once again and the stray dogs assembled outside the hospital, this time with an air of urgency and tension, the hospital's fate hung in the balance. The revelations in Mr. Benson's envelope and the public outcry had set the stage for a confrontation that would determine not only the future of the memorial project, but also the very soul of the community. Every stakeholder, from the skeptical Dr. Collins to the impassioned community members and the determined Lara, was now poised on the edge of a decision that would reverberate for years to come. The conflicts had reached a critical turning point. The truth, long buried under layers of time and secrecy, was clawing its way to the surface. And as the stray dogs, ever symbolic and mysterious, watched silently from the shadows, the community braced itself for the impending climax, a moment when the intertwined fates of past and present would finally collide, setting the stage for an emotional reckoning that could heal old wounds or shatter the fragile unity that had been so painstakingly built. In the wake of the explosive revelations, the hospital became the epicenter of a fierce confrontation that demanded decisive action. The emergency board meeting, held in the hospital's grand conference hall, was packed with anxious administrators, impassioned community representatives, and key members of the investigative team. Tension hung in the air like a thick fog as Dr. Collins, emboldened by his faction's growing numbers, rose to address the assembly. His voice, steady yet laced with urgency, laid out the case against continuing the memorial project. We have uncovered evidence of financial misconduct and deliberate manipulation that taints the legacy of the Haven of Hope. To continue honoring this past without addressing these misdeeds is to condone corruption, he declared. His words sparked murmurs among the crowd, igniting a heated debate that resonated with every attendee. Across the table, Nurse Lara, who had become the heart and soul of the memorial initiative, met Dr. Collins' accusations with quiet determination. Standing before the assembled board, Lara's eyes shone with both sorrow and conviction. "I understand your concerns," she began, her voice trembling with emotion yet resolute. "But this project is not just about the financial records or the scandals of the past. It's about the spirit of compassion that Nurse Eleanor embodied, a spirit that still lives on in every stray dog that gathers outside our doors each night." Her plea was not merely an appeal for sentimentality, it was a call to reconcile the painful truths with the possibility of healing. As the debate intensified, voices rose on all sides. Community representatives took turns recounting personal stories of how the orphanage and its loyal animals had once been a beacon of hope. Their testimonies painted a picture of an institution that, despite its flaws, had nurtured countless lives with love and care. An elderly woman, tears streaming down her face, recalled how a stray dog had once gently nuzzled her during a time of unbearable grief. A young man spoke of the orphanage as a sanctuary, where every act of kindness was a step toward healing. These personal narratives, interwoven with the stark evidence presented by Mr. Benson and the investigative reports from Emily Rivera, created an atmosphere of raw, conflicting emotion. Amid this charged environment, the board was forced to confront a pivotal question. Could the hospital forge a new path that honored the compassionate legacy of the orphanage while simultaneously addressing the dark underbelly of corruption that had marred its history? The debate reached a crescendo when a respected community elder, known for his wisdom and balanced judgment, stood up and proposed a daring solution. "Let us not discard the past entirely," he urged, "but rather use it as a foundation for transformation. We must acknowledge the errors, hold those responsible accountable, and build a memorial that reflects both the sorrow and the hope of those times." This proposal sparked a flurry of discussions. Some board members, previously staunch in their opposition, began to see merit in a dual approach, one that confronted the painful truths head-on while preserving the emotional legacy that had touched so many lives. The idea was to launch an independent investigation into the financial malfeasance, led by a coalition of community leaders, while continuing to support the memorial project as a symbol of resilience and reconciliation. As the meeting progressed, Nurse Lara found herself at the center of a critical turning point. Recognizing the need for a unified stance, she suggested the formation of a legacy committee, a diverse group comprising hospital administrators, community representatives, and independent experts. Their mandate would be twofold: to oversee a thorough inquiry into the orphanage's financial records and to curate a revised memorial project that transparently acknowledged both the triumphs and the tragedies of the past. "Our history is complex," Lara asserted passionately, "and it is only by facing it in its entirety, both the light and the dark, that we can truly heal." The proposal was met with a mix of cautious optimism and lingering skepticism. Dr. Collins, while still wary, conceded that ignoring the past entirely would not serve the hospital or the community. A heated vote was called, and after a tense few minutes, the board reached a tentative consensus. The hospital would proceed with the Legacy Committee, with the stipulation that all findings of the independent investigation be made public. This decision, while not satisfying all parties, marked a significant step toward addressing the conflict head-on. Outside the boardroom, the impact of this decision rippled through the community. Emily Rivera, the intrepid journalist, published a breaking story detailing the board's decision and the formation of the Legacy Committee. Her article, while highlighting the unresolved questions and the inherent tensions, also celebrated the spirit of collaboration and the community's willingness to confront its past. That night, as the stray dogs gathered once again outside the hospital, their eyes shone with a mysterious intensity. It was as if they sensed that a crucial battle was being fought, a battle not only for truth and justice, but for the very soul of the community. In the stillness of the night, Nurse Lara stood by the hospital's entrance, reflecting on the weight of the decisions made and the uncertain path ahead. The confrontation had forced everyone to face their deepest fears and hopes, setting the stage for the climax that would decide whether the legacy of the Haven of Hope could be redeemed or would be forever lost in the shadows of corruption. As the Legacy Committee began its work, the entire community felt the strain of unresolved emotions and conflicting truths. The hospital corridors, once a silent testament to routine care, now buzzed with whispered debates and anxious anticipation. Every corner of the institution, every patient room, every administrative office, seemed to vibrate with the intensity of a secret waiting to be unveiled. The air was thick with uncertainty, and the stray dogs, ever watchful, appeared to sense that the moment of reckoning was near. In the days that followed the heated board meeting, the hospital's atmosphere grew increasingly charged. Late at night, Nurse Lara found herself staying long after her shift ended, reviewing every piece of evidence, every archival document, and every personal testimony collected over the past weeks. The Legacy Committee's first public meeting had ended in a tense silence. The community members left with more questions than answers, and the board members, divided between hope and skepticism, seemed to await the inevitable confrontation that would break the impasse. Tensions escalated further when an unexpected leak from the independent investigation surfaced. Anonymous sources provided preliminary findings that pointed to a deeper network of corruption than anyone had suspected. Financial records, once meticulously hidden away, began to circulate among local media outlets. The leaked document suggested that the mysterious benefactor might have been involved not only in the misappropriation of funds, but also in orchestrating events that led to the orphanage's demise. This revelation ignited a firestorm of public outrage and deepened the rift between those determined to preserve the orphanage's legacy and those demanding accountability. Within the hospital, Dr. Collins and his faction grew more vocal. At a late-night emergency meeting convened by the board, Dr. Collins demanded, "We can no longer hide behind sentimental narratives. The truth is clear, and it demands retribution. We must take decisive action against those who have tarnished this institution." His words, sharp and uncompromising, were met with a mixture of defiant nods and anxious glances. Nurse Lara, standing at the front of the room, felt the weight of the moment. The Legacy Committee's future, and with it, the future of the hospital's connection to the past, hung in the balance. Outside, community protests intensified. Crowds gathered in the hospital's parking lot, holding banners that read "Truth and Healing" and "Honor the Past, Embrace the Future." Their voices merged into a powerful chorus of demands for transparency and justice. Amid the clamor, Emily Rivera's latest article hit the front pages of local newspapers, echoing the community's fervor and setting the stage for an all-out public confrontation. The article not only recounted the recent board decisions, but also hinted at explosive revelations, yet to be disclosed by the independent investigators. That fateful night, as a violent thunderstorm battered the town, the hospital's emergency power failed, plunging the building into darkness. In that eerie blackness, every sound was amplified. The distant barking of the stray dogs, the murmurs of anxious staff, and the relentless drumming of rain against the windows. Nurse Lara, illuminated only by the flickering emergency lights, felt the convergence of past and present intensify into a single, overwhelming moment of crisis. It was as if the very fabric of time was tearing, and with it, the hopes and fears of everyone involved. In a quiet corner of the hospital's main hall, Lara met with Mr. Benson one last time before the public announcement of the Legacy Committee's next steps. The archivist, his hands trembling as he held a newly discovered set of documents, whispered, "This is the final piece, Lara. It confirms everything, the misappropriation, the manipulation, and the true identity of the benefactor." His voice carried both relief and sorrow, for he knew that revealing these truths would forever change the hospital's legacy. Lara nodded, feeling a mix of determination and dread. The stakes were now higher than ever. The revelations would not only redefine the past, but also determine the future course of the hospital and the community's trust. As the storm raged outside, the stray dogs gathered once more at the hospital entrance. Their leader, the dignified guardian whose eyes had witnessed so much, stood motionless as if preparing to deliver a final, silent message. The dog's behavior, now more coordinated than ever, hinted at a profound understanding of the impending change. It was as if they were the custodians of a sacred truth, bridging the gap between the scars of history and the promise of renewal. The final meeting of the Legacy Committee was scheduled for dawn. The hospital's board, community representatives, and investigative experts would come together to decide the ultimate fate of the memorial project and the hospital's historical narrative. In the moments before the meeting, the tension was nearly unbearable. Every attendee felt that this was the climax of a long and arduous journey, a moment when all the threads of pain, corruption, hope, and redemption would be woven together into one final tapestry of truth. Standing in the dim light of the hospital lobby, Nurse Lara took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "This is it. The moment when we must face our past to heal our future." The echoes of her words mingled with the distant howling of the wind and the soft, unwavering presence of the stray dogs. The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only resolve the legacy of the Haven of Hope, but also redefine the very essence of community and compassion. The dawn broke with an eerie stillness over the hospital, as if the entire town held its breath for what was about to unfold. In the main conference room, the assembled Legacy Committee, comprising hospital administrators, community leaders, investigative experts, and representatives of the grieving past, sat in solemn anticipation. The final decision on the memorial project and the public revelation of the orphanage's hidden history was imminent, and every heart present thumped with the weight of collective destiny. Nurse Lara stood at the head of the table, her expression resolute yet tinged with sorrow. Behind her, the walls were adorned with the carefully curated artifacts of the Haven of Hope, faded photographs, handwritten letters, and the mysterious locket that had once belonged to a caretaker. Today, these relics were not merely symbols of a bygone era. They were the evidence of a truth that had been fought for through pain and perseverance. The room fell silent as Lara began her address, her voice steady and clear. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared, "where we must choose to embrace every facet of our past, the light and the darkness, to forge a future defined by truth and healing." At that moment, the door burst open, and Dr. Collins, accompanied by several board members, entered with a palpable urgency. His eyes, usually so cold and detached, now burned with a mix of determination and regret. "There are revelations that cannot be hidden any longer," he announced, producing a sealed envelope, the final piece of evidence from Mr. Benson that detailed the full extent of the corruption and the identity of the shadow benefactor. The envelope's contents, laid out before the assembly, painted a stark portrait of betrayal, manipulated financial records, secret meetings, and a network of illicit dealings that had contributed to the orphanage's downfall. Gasps filled the room as the documents were examined. Emily Rivera, present as a representative of the media, captured every moment on her recorder. The evidence was irrefutable, and it soon became clear that the benefactor, a man whose name had been carefully obscured for decades, had used his influence to both profit from and sabotage the orphanage. The truth was shattering in its finality, yet within it lay the seeds of redemption. The tension reached its peak when a well-respected community elder, who had long been a pillar of wisdom, stood up and said, "We cannot change what happened, but we can choose how we remember it. Let this truth, however painful, be the foundation upon which we build a future of accountability and compassion." His words resonated powerfully, shifting the mood from one of outrage to one of collective resolve. In that charged moment, the stray dogs outside the hospital, led by their dignified guardian, gathered in a formation visible through the large windows. Their eyes, reflecting a haunting mixture of sorrow and hope, seemed to silently affirm the decision being made within. For many, these loyal creatures were living embodiments of the orphanage's spirit, symbols of both loss and the enduring power of love. Lara continued, her voice wavering slightly with emotion. "We honor Nurse Eleanor and the legacy of the Haven of Hope by acknowledging every truth. We will launch a full-scale independent investigation into the corruption, and we will rebuild our memorial to reflect both the triumphs and the tragedies of our past. This is not merely an act of remembrance, it is a commitment to never allow such darkness to repeat itself." As the room absorbed her words, Dr. Collins, now visibly humbled by the overwhelming evidence and the impassioned plea for healing, stepped forward. "I was wrong to dismiss the emotional legacy that connects us all," he admitted. "Today, I commit to working alongside this committee to ensure that our hospital not only heals the body, but also mends the spirit of our community." A round of applause broke out, tentative at first, then growing in fervor, as both skeptics and supporters recognized the magnitude of the moment. The Legacy Committee unanimously voted to proceed with the dual mandate, to conduct an independent investigation into the misappropriated funds and to launch a revised memorial project that would transparently honor the orphanage's history in its entirety. In the final moments before the official announcement, Lara stepped outside the conference room. The early morning light cast long shadows across the hospital's facade, and there, waiting at the entrance, were the stray dogs. Their presence was both poignant and powerful, a living testament to the unbreakable bond between the past and the present. As she looked into the eyes of the regal guardian dog, Lara felt a profound sense of closure and renewal. The truth had been unveiled, and though it brought pain, it also ignited a beacon of hope for the future. With the decision made and the community united under a shared vision, the hospital began to prepare for the next phase. The press was briefed, the investigation set in motion, and plans for the memorial laid out with careful consideration. The climax of this long journey was not an end, but the beginning of a transformative process, one that promised to heal old wounds and rebuild trust. In that moment, as the first rays of the sun broke through the clouds, Nurse Lara whispered, "Today, we choose truth and hope." The words echoed not only in the hearts of those present, but also in the silent vigil of the stray dogs, who had been the steadfast keepers of a legacy that would now guide the community toward a brighter tomorrow. As the early morning light bathed the hospital in a gentle glow, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of renewal and resolve. The long and arduous journey of uncovering the truth behind the Haven of Hope had culminated in a transformative decision that promised not only to mend the fractured bonds of the past, but also to pave the way for a brighter, more compassionate future. With the Legacy Committee's mandate now set, the hospital, the community, and even the silent guardians of the night, the stray dogs, stood united in their commitment to honor every facet of their shared history. In the weeks that followed, the hospital embarked on a two-pronged mission. First, an independent investigation was launched to scrutinize the financial records and expose the corruption that had haunted the orphanage's final days. A team of dedicated experts, in collaboration with local authorities and community representatives, began to piece together every transaction, every meeting, and every whispered secret that had once led to the orphanage's tragic downfall. The findings, although painful, were seen as a necessary step toward accountability and healing. Public meetings and press briefings were held, where every new revelation was met with a mixture of sorrow, understanding, and an unwavering commitment to prevent such injustices from recurring. Simultaneously, the hospital set about redefining its identity by integrating a memorial project that was both honest and hopeful. Under the guidance of Nurse Lara, the project evolved into a living tribute to the Haven of Hope. The hospital grounds were transformed into a space where historical photographs, personal testimonies, and recovered artifacts were displayed with reverence. A dedicated memorial garden was established where families and former staff members could come together, share their stories, and find solace in the collective memory of a time that had shaped the community. In this garden, plaques narrated the stories of Nurse Eleanor, the orphanage's resilient spirit, and the loyal stray dogs whose nightly vigil had been a silent testament to enduring love and loss. As the memorial project took shape, the community began to witness a profound change. What had once been a source of painful reminders gradually evolved into a beacon of healing. Former adversaries found common ground as public debates turned into collaborative efforts. The hospital administration, once divided by skepticism and pragmatism, embraced a new philosophy that recognized the importance of addressing emotional well-being alongside clinical care. In meetings that once brimmed with contentious voices, now a shared vision emerged, one where transparency, accountability, and compassion were seen as the pillars of true healing. Nurse Lara, whose unwavering dedication had been the catalyst for this monumental transformation, continued to be the heart and soul of the movement. Late at night, as she reviewed the latest updates from the independent investigation or walked past the glowing memorial garden, she would often pause and reflect on how far they had come. The memory of Nurse Eleanor, once a distant echo in the hospital's corridors, now lived vividly in every smile, every tear, and every act of kindness witnessed on the hospital grounds. The stray dogs, ever watchful at the entrance, served as a constant reminder that the past was not something to be forgotten, but a legacy to be cherished and learned from. The transformation was felt not only within the walls of the hospital, but also throughout the town. Local schools invited community leaders to speak about the importance of preserving history and fostering empathy. Social media buzzed with heartfelt tributes and personal stories of resilience, connecting people from all walks of life. The once divisive narrative of a tragic orphanage now became a symbol of collective strength and the capacity to heal through understanding and compassion. In a final, unifying gesture, the hospital organized a grand ceremony on the anniversary of the orphanage's closure. Families, former staff members, and community representatives gathered under a clear, starlit sky. Speeches were made, memories were shared, and promises were renewed to honor both the successes and the missteps of the past. The ceremony culminated in the lighting of a beacon of hope, a luminous sculpture, designed to remind everyone that from the darkest times can emerge the brightest light. As the event drew to a close, Nurse Lara addressed the crowd one last time. "Today we choose to remember with honesty and hope," she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "Our history, with all its scars and its beauty, is a part of who we are. It teaches us that true healing comes not from forgetting the past, but from embracing it, acknowledging both its pain and its potential for renewal." Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery, resilience, and hope. If this story has touched your heart and inspired you to look deeper into the power of truth and compassion, please subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for our next video, where we continue to explore the remarkable connections that bind us to our past and shape our future. Together, let's build a community where every story, no matter how painful, leads to healing and transformation.